Well, hello again. Thank you for letting me come, President Milioni. I enjoyed myself yesterday. I enjoyed today in the homiletics class, the senior homiletics class. Professor Alcorn invited me up there. What a great, sharp group of men you have in that class. And one day they'll be out preaching, bringing people to Christ, and in the right way. And by the way, I need your help. Before we go into what I want to say for today, I need your help for my education. I'm finishing. Right now, I'm in the Doctor of Ministry program, and I've finished all the classes that are required. I'm done with all those classes. And by the way, if you wonder what a 66-year-old guy will do in a class, it woke my mind up is what it did. That's the first thing it did. I didn't realize that my mind went to sleep until I got into the classroom. And when I got into the classroom, it woke me up in a hurry. And I wanted to be a 4.0 student. That's what I wanted to be. I wasn't that at BBC. Okay, I made the dean's list, but I'm not sure it was the right one. It was different. I did some things. You know, I think if my dad hadn't been a supporting pastor, they probably would have kicked me out. But they needed the money, and they kept me. And I'm, yeah, I can. Yeah, I can too. I have my price. But they put up with me and let me graduate. And but I'm back in class. I'll finish it. And by the way, my grade point average in the Doctor of Ministry, I just have to tell you, I just got it, is 3.9. A clap. Could I hear a courtesy clap? Yeah. Even a guy that misses a putt gets a courtesy clap. You know. I'm finished my dissertation. And there was a certain way I wanted to go in my dissertation, and they told me, the university told me, no, we're not going to let you do that. You think you can write the dissertation on whatever you want, they tell you what to do, basically. And so I was going to write it on the 9 human hungers, what the fruit of the Spirit and the works of the flesh have in common. And they said, no, we don't want that. Your strength is in family ministry, and so you really should write your dissertation toward your strengths. And so they changed it, and so now my dissertation is ministry strategies to help families of dads pass their faith to the next generation successfully, because that's what we need to do. So I'm doing that. In our church, we have a very, very, very strong family ministry. We've got a big kiosk, family ministry resources, life situations. You can go in there, you can take brochures free. And it's your first step toward getting some help for our family. If you're having a struggle with divorce, you're having a struggle with abortion, if you're having a struggle with sexual identity, if you're having a struggle with anything, you can go into those life situations. And there's life situations here, and there's life stages over here, and they disappear. You would be surprised how many people want that first step. And so family ministry is important. But I want to know how many of you have a formal family ministry in your church. I need to know that for my dissertation. So will you help me? If I promise not to bore you, if I promise to be short, I don't mean in stature, I mean in in the length. But I want to pass these surveys out. Actually, I don't want to. I want you to pass them out. And if you can help me, let me keep one. And if you can, it's a very simple, very easy. It's a low risk survey. Nobody's going to know anything about you that FBI will come visit you after you fill this out. And when you get it, if you can just mark, and you don't have to. Don't put your name on it. I don't want to know what your name is. Don't put your church's name on it. I don't want to know what your church's name is. That doesn't matter. All I need to know is the information. And be honest, okay? Be honest. It doesn't help my thesis if you're not honest in your evaluation. And this really is an evaluation of your church, family ministry, the church you come from, not the one you're in now, but the one you came from, unless the one you came from is the one you're in now. So let me read it to you. Church Family Ministry Survey. In an effort to understand how the church is presently serving its families in passing their faith to the next generation, please fill out the following questions. Please do not sign. This is a volunteer survey and participation is not mandated. That's on there. Number 1, does your church have an intentional formal ministry other than children's Sunday school to help parents in modeling spiritual truths for their children? Check what applies. Number 1, to have a personal quiet time, to participate in family Bible studies, to initiate family prayer times with their children, to teach husbands and wives to pray together. Do they have a formal ministry? I'm not talking about just a sermon. I'm talking about a formal ministry that will help do that. Or other. If there's something you want to say, there's a place for other. Do they have none? Do they have somewhat? Or do they have an ongoing? Okay? Number 2, does your church have an intentional official ministry to train parents to formally teach their children spiritual truths? Intentional, formal ministry to train parents, not just to model spiritual truths. You're going from model to train the trainer. Okay, there's a whole difference between modeling it and then formally training in the home. Dad, teach your children so they can teach their children. So they in turn can teach their children, even the children yet to be born. So they may put their faith and trust in God and not be a stubborn and rebellious generation like their fathers. And 3, and I know those are similar, but the difference is model and train. That's what I need to know, to model it or to train them how to. Number 3, does your church have an intentional formal teaching ministry or resource center with assets to train parents how to informally, that's in the everydayness of life. The first 2 are formal training. The third one is informal training, teaching you how to take teachable moments in the everydayness of life and teach those to your children like object lessons, that sort of thing. Spiritual truths. For bedtime, for mealtime, for drive time, for quiet time, or for others. Do they have those that you know of in your church? This is probably the easiest quiz you'll take all year. And you all get an A. Can we put that on their transcript? It'll help. Okay. If you participated, thank you so much. If you didn't, I forgive you. It's okay. Rejection, I take rejection really easy. Would you just pass them in? And we'll put them up here. And then we can start. And by the way, I had the permission of your president to take this survey. So Did you get a chance to open the book and read some? I hope you did. I know you got a lot of homework, and I don't mean to put more homework on you. I hate homework. I'm telling you, I've had a mountain of homework over the past 3 years. A mountain. And to be very honest with you, I don't know why I had the harebrained idea to go back to school and then pastor a church and keep a wife straight in line and and all of that, those are full-time jobs. And I don't know why I did it, but I did it. But I can tell you, I'm pretty close to burnout right now. I'm serious. And being here has been good for me. And I don't know if it's good for you, but it's good for me. So thank you for inviting me to come back here. And I hope you open your book, and I hope you read some. I hope you're forming you're getting your 3 or 4 people and forming a small group, and you'll go through this, because this is critically important to your future. To know how to get in your secret place, and to know what ministries are in there, and to know in that intimacy with God, what's the offspring coming out of your heart? What ministry offspring comes out of your heart? Because it will come out of there. I guarantee you, it will come out of there. There was a young man who came to Baptist Bible College almost 50 years ago. And he wanted to change the world for Christ. He had been raised in a bad situation, an alcoholic father. He was known in his community, and he was known as a rebel rouser in his community, but he came to Baptist Bible College because he thought God wanted him to do something. First thing he did is he joined a church, in his High Street church. Dr. Dow was there then, and he joined that church, and he got convicted in some of the classes. I should be doing something. And so he went to the Sunday school superintendent, and he asked, "Can I teach a Sunday school class?" And they never replied to him. And he went back again, and he asked him, "Could I teach a Sunday school class?" And they never replied to him. And after he badgered one of the superintendents long enough, the guy said, "Look, all right, I'll give you a class." And he put up a curtain, and in that curtain, in the corner of a bigger room like this, he said, "You can have 9-year-old boys, and you go in there and you build a class." He said, "Well, where are the boys?" He said, "Build them yourself. I'm not giving you any kids. Go get some kids." And he said how many times he came in to teach a Sunday school lesson, and there was nobody. And the superintendent came to him and said, "See, I told you, you can't build anything. That's why we didn't give you anything in the first place. You can't build anything." Well, that hurt. That hurt down deep. And he decided, you know what? I'm not a failure. The first thing he wanted to do was throw in the towel. But he said, "I'm not a failure. I can do something." So he went out and he got a couple of boys, 9-year-old boys, and he started building that class. And he said he would get a few, and then they would leave. They'd drop out. Wouldn't be anymore. So he decided to find a place where he could get alone with God. And over here in Berea Hall, where he was staying, on the bottom floor, I think it is, Berea Hall, he found a room vacant. And that was his secret place. That's where he went to talk to God in his heart. He laid on an old box spring mattress, and times he cried out to God, and at times he and God was in the secret place together. And he made some promises to God in that secret place, and he told God, you know, I'm not much, and I know I hadn't been a very good kid, but I think I've got something, and whatever I have, you can use it. And he gave it to God, and he went back and started to build that class. And you know, eventually he built the biggest Sunday school class that anybody had at High Street Baptist Church. He left Springfield, and he went back to the East Coast at a place called Lynchburg, Virginia. And he started a church in a Coca-Cola factory. And in first year anniversary, he had 800. Today, I think his son Jonathan has 22,000 in church. Liberty University has 110,000 students online and all that. But right down there in Berea Hall, I told Brother Milione, I told him I want to go down there. I want to see that place. I want to see that place because there is a living example of what can happen when you get alone with God in your secret place. He has a ministry that you never imagined. He has something for you that you never even thought could happen in your life. But you need to go there, and you need to do business with Him there. You need to dump the garbage out of there that you have taken in there and stored and hoarded, like the TV show, The Hoarders. You've hoarded stuff in your heart, And you need to get rid of it. Dump your garbage. It's what we talked about yesterday. And learn some endurance. When the going gets tough at BBC, don't quit in a month. Don't quit in 6 months. If you do, you'll never get there. You'll never go there. It is in that secret place. And I want you to turn to Psalm 91 today. And I've talked about it. Now I want to get into the scripture for it. And by the way, when I wrote that book, I'll tell you a little bit about that, because that's a miracle in itself that ever came about. But one of the things they did is the publisher had just published the Prayer of Jabez book, and this book came right after it. And when this book came after it, Multnomah Publishers took a beating off the Prayer of Jabez book, even though it sold 11 million copies, because the theologians called it spiritual fast food. And they didn't want another book that was spiritual fast food, so they sent my manuscript to 5 theologians across the country to be sure that what I was saying was correct, according to theologians. And not only that, they made me write a book to defend this book. I still have the manuscript that I had to do to defend what I was saying in this book, because some of it was so new to some people. And sure enough, it was. But before I ever went, I had already gone out to the Mennonite Brethren Seminary at Fresno Pacific University. And let me tell you, the Mennonites, they can equip you for Bible study and in the languages as good as anybody. They have a good seminary out in Fresno Pacific. And he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And I ran by my thesis to them and told them what I was going to write on. And I got with the Hebrew scholars. Now, I'm not a Hebrew scholar. I'm just barely a Hebrew student. Okay? I know enough. I've been taught enough. I can work my way through the Hebrew stuff, but I'm not a scholar by any stretch. So I went to the scholars. And I said, the secret place. Go through that first verse with me. And these Hebrew scholars sat down and they said, the first 2 verses of Psalm 91 is a mystery. It's a mystery to us. We really don't understand it. He starts with the third person, and by the time he gets to the second verse, he's in the first person. He talks about he who dwells, and then he said abide, dwell and abide. And he said they said it's a complex Hebrew conscript there. His text is difficult to follow, and it's mysterious. But we can say this. Because of it, there's a redundancy in this scripture. And if you really wanted to translate it, if I was going to translate it, this is the way I would translate it. He who dwells in the secret place. He who dwells in the secret place. In other words, there is a place for where there's a secret place. There is a place. Now, don't let that pass you by. There's a place where there's a secret place. And you have to determine where that is. And then a little bit later, he says, you'll abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Under the shadow of the Almighty. And most scholars say at that point, what he's talking about there is at the mercy seat, those angels had their wings spread like this. And the priest who went into the Holy of Holies was in the secret place, and only he could go. Nobody else could go into the Holy of Holies. You know that. He went with a rope tied to his foot. And if God killed him and didn't take the sacrifice, they pulled him out by the rope, because if you went in to get him, you were dead too. So only one person could go in that secret place, and that was the priest. Who's the priest of your life? Somebody tell me. Who's the priest of your life? You are. You are. Now, I don't think you have to tie a rope to your foot when you go into the secret place anymore. I don't think you have to do that. But because nobody can go in there with you. You're the only one that can be in there. You and God alone. You're in the Holy of Holies in that secret place. And it's veiled off from anybody else. You and God. So let's read it again. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He's my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust. Surely he will deliver you. Now here are the 18 promises he has for you. Surely he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. He'll cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, or the arrows that fly by day, or of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come nigh you. Only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked. Because you who have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation, no evil shall befall you, nor any plague come nigh your dwelling. What dwelling? Where you're dwelling in the secret place. For he shall give his angels charge over you, and to keep you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against the stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, and the young lion and the serpent shall trample you. Those things that are poisonous to you, those things that could bring you down that are poisonous, you can trample on. You can step on. That's the power that the Almighty gives you in the secret place. Because he has set his love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. Wow. Wow. Well, how does that play out? You say, Otis, how does that play out? Look back to Psalm 32. In Psalm 32, you'll see David, who wrote the 91st Psalm, and David wrote the 32nd Psalm because he's contemplating here. He's doing some contemplation here, and he's talking about how this plays out in his life. Look how the secret place played out. In this, he calls it a different name in this chapter. He says, the first thing you see of some expression of joy. The first two verses are expressions of joy. Okay, blessed is whose transgression is forgiven, blah, 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 there, that sort of thing. And then the next three are reflection of past sins. Okay, and he's reluctant, by the way, he's reluctant to do anything about those past sins. And some of those past sins are so fun, and some of them are so addicting that it's hard to deal with them. And David found that. He was reluctant to confess some of those past sins in verse 3 and 4. In verse 5, all of a sudden he's willing to confess. I acknowledge my sin to you. I acknowledge it. He's willing to. And then starting in verse 6, there are provisions for future needs. And this is where he says, listen to what he says. You see him, I'm joyful, but there's sin in my life that I can't get rid of. And now he's going to deal with God about this secret place. For this cause, everyone who is godly shall pray to you. And in time when you may be found, surely in the flood of great waters, they shall not come near him. You are my hiding place. You're my secret place. You are my hiding place. Well, if you turn back a few to Psalm chapter, the 27th Psalm, you see it again. And by the way, the 27th Psalm is another Psalm of David, and this was written when 2 Samuel chapter 21 verse 15 was happening. 2 Samuel 21:15. Anybody got your Bible open? Would you turn to 2 Samuel chapter 21 verse 15? I only have the New Testament with me. 2 Samuel chapter 21 verse 15. Would you stand up and just read that really loud? Can you read? Okay, listen to what he says. Listen to this verse.
There was war again between the Philistines and Israel, and David went down together with his servants, and they fought against the Philistines, and David grew weary.
The New King James said David grew faint. He grew weary. He was weary with a war. And I tell you, there are sometimes I'm so weary with a war. I'm so weary battling because you are not in a battle, you are in a war. A spiritual warfare. You get weary. That's what was happening in 2 Samuel chapter 21 verse 15. And he wrote this psalm at that very time. And this is what he says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Who shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? And he goes down and look in verse 4. One thing I have desired of the Lord, that will I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, and behold the beauty of the Lord. And listen to this. I'll inquire in his temple, for in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion in the secret place. In the secret place. If you go to the New Testament, it jumps over the 400 years of silence. In Matthew chapter 6 and verse 6, you'll find Jesus telling his disciples, when you pray, go into the secret place. When you pray, go into the secret place. And when you go into the secret place and you do some things, business with God in the secret place, I will reward you openly. So that intimacy that I was talking about yesterday that you have with God in the secret place will produce offspring, and that offspring will be what God is rewarding you with, and everybody will see what he's rewarded you with. They will see your children. They'll see your offspring. Incredible truth. Incredible truth. And yet it is such an incredibly ordinary truth that is extraordinarily ignored. So, as I said yesterday, doesn't it make sense that if Satan has spent his millenniums on this earth trying to steal God's glory, that he will busy himself trying to thwart God's purpose in your life? He constantly stands in opposition to the purpose of God. And the last thing he wants for you is that you will discover afreshly the secret place, or you'll have a clear understanding of God's will. He wants to confuse God's will in your life, and some of you right now are confused about God's will in your life. But let me tell you, knowing that Satan can't read my thoughts, knowing that he's locked out of my secret place, knowing and understanding that he's confined to some sort of spiritual body, that's very freeing to me. But he's not without the ability to communicate to people. We find him speaking to Eve in the Garden of Eden. He has a conversation with Jesus in the wilderness. We see his ability to physically affect lives in the book of Job. His demons are listening. They're gathering and sharing information about you with each other. In the book of Luke, chapter 11, you find the demons were kicked out. They went out and shared information about a place in a man's life where there was room for more of them, or even worse, and 7 times more came in. And they went out and shared that information and recruited. And they came into the life of that person. Let me ask you this. Are any of you old enough to remember when Reagan ordered the bombing of Libya? Y'all remember that? He did it under stealth. Nobody knew he was coming. We had the stealth airplanes, the bombers, and they took off from a base that nobody knew where they took off from. It was secret. They flew a secret mission. They hit Libya. They bombed Gaddafi into silence. He went into silence from then on. We never heard from that guy again until a few years ago. Scared the socks off of him. And they came back. We didn't lose a plane. We didn't lose a soldier. We didn't lose a pilot. We didn't lose anything. Now, let me ask you this question. Think with me. Don't let your mind wander. This is important. Think with me. Suppose Reagan had said, you know what? I think I'm going to bomb Libya. We're going to get that guy out of our hair. And they sat down and they made their plan. And the Joint Chiefs of Staff made the plan. And he said, this is a good plan. And he picks up the phone and he calls Gaddafi. And he says, hey, we got a plan against you. And we're going to invite you, if you want to send somebody. We're going to have another meeting before we come over there. And if you want to come in and sit in with us. And he invites the enemy in. The enemy comes in. They see the plan. What do you think would have happened in Libya had he done that? Do you think we would have lost the plane? Do you think we would have lost some soldiers? That happens every day in the life of Christians. God is planning and ordering something in your secret place. And what do? You go and you tell it And before you can even get the ministry started, the devil is already thwarting it. You say, does that really happen? Yeah, it really happens. You have the book? You got the book? Can I just ask you to open to page 36 in this book? And let me, I don't want to insult your intelligence, but I want us to read this together. As a matter of fact, 34. Let's go to that page right there. And let's just read this together. I want you to see it it's actually happening. It's actually happening. This is a great story, and you've heard it from the time you were in Sunday school on. Okay, I'm at the bottom of page 34, and I'm just going to read. Just read along with me. Okay, we see this truth played out in dramatic fashion in the book of Daniel when King Nebuchadnezzar had a troubling dream and couldn't go to sleep. He summoned his court magicians, astrologers, sorcerers, definitely a crew that would be expected to be in touch with demonic powers, to interpret his dream. And the dream interpretation was their specialty, so they respectfully responded with a reasonable request. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation. Okay, you tell me what you dreamed, Nebuchadnezzar, and I will tell you how it's interpreted. Nebuchadnezzar said, no, I know you guys. You'll make it up. You tell me what I dreamed. And if you can tell me what I dreamed, then I'll believe your interpretation. And you know what they said? They said, oh, wait a minute. It's unreasonable. If you look at page 35 right there, the first paragraph, he promised gifts and rewards and great honor if, along with the same interpretation, they told him the vision the same the way he did the dream. And if they didn't, if you don't tell me what I dreamed and you don't interpret it, I'm going to cut you in pieces. I'm going to cut your head off. And your houses will be made an ash heap. I'm going to burn them down. Well, they were motivated. That would motivate me. They were motivated in the king's promise, from this king's promise. And so they come up with some private knowledge by hook or by crook. And they couldn't do it. And so the king started carrying out his order. He started cutting their heads off. And they saw he was serious. They said, whoa. But Daniel and the 3 Hebrew children were in line for that. And their heads were going to be gone too, or they're the same thing. So Daniel said, you tell the king to hold on. And by the way, these sorcerers, you know what they told the king? We can't do that. Only the people that dwell with a God can do that. Daniel dwelt with a God. He dwelt with God. Bottom of page 35. Furious, Nebuchadnezzar issued the order for his soldiers to execute all the wise men in his service. It would have included, like I said, Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel was told of the king's order, and the reason for it, he went that night to the secret place to meet with God. And there, the contents of the king's dream, as well as their meaning, were revealed to him in his secret place. Earlier, Daniel had asked his 3 friends to pray for him, to pray urgently for God to show him this mystery. But once the dream was made known, we have no record of his letting his friends know what God told him on his way back to the palace. He didn't go to brag. Information is power, you know. Hey, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I'm better than you. God told me this, and this is what he told me. He didn't say it. He knew he needed to wait till the proper time on the proper stage because half of the kingdom was at stake. If you could do this, he's going to give you jewels and all kind of stuff and half the kingdom. And Daniel knew that these sorcerers didn't need half the kingdom. He had enough trouble already. He waited till the proper time, to the proper place where only God could get the glory, and he revealed it. And it changed Nebuchadnezzar's life. Go to the New Testament. The little, 12, 14-year-old girl that the angel visited in a dream in the secret place, told that she would have the Messiah. What did the Bible say Mary did? Mary kept these things in her heart and she pondered them in a secret place. In the secret place. When Herod was going to kill all the 2-year-olds and under, What happened? In the secret place, it was revealed to Joseph and Mary to go to Egypt. God has a secret place because He knows when you pray out loud and when audible things are said, guess who else is listening? The spirit world knows, and they can communicate, and they can make life miserable for you, especially when it comes to ministry. Incredible truth, young people. Incredible truth. So I have these questions for you today. I don't know if I'm following this back there or not, Matthew, so you guys. But the questions that we ask here, number one, answer these questions for me. If Satan does not use information he hears or sees, then how does he operate? How does he know our weaknesses? How does he know how to effectively make shipwreck of your life? How does he know which device to use at different times? And without being facetious, the basic impeachment about the usefulness of the illustration would only seem viable if Satan was at least deaf and possibly deaf and blind. And he's not. In other words, I think it's obvious that Satan uses information at his disposal to work his deeds. So the question comes, how do we keep that information from him? I have this motto, the least that needs to know should be the last to know. And the one that is least to know about my life and what I'm doing for the Lord and the ministries that are happening, he ought to be kept on the outs. So he can't do anything. So let's define the secret place. I'll close with this. Let's define the secret place. Here it is. It's not a new place, and it's not secret in the sense of being hidden to you, a believer. Rather, it is a place where you are invited into God's presence, into a deeper fellowship than is available in the typical hurried devotional life, a place where you pray. Most public prayers, Rick, don't get past the ceiling. I believe if we could see privately today all the prayers in a prayer group, many of them would just be bouncing around the ceiling. I don't know that they get anywhere. Maybe, do you do this? I'm in a circle of people and we're going to pray. And this guy over here starts praying, and the closer it gets to me, the more anxious I get. Okay, I'm next to pray. So what am I going to say that's going to impress somebody? What am I going to say that's going to make me look stupid? How am I going to pray? How am I going to say it? What am I going to do? And by the time it gets to you, you pray a prayer, and you don't know if it's serious or not. But I did it. I was with the rest of them. Bounce, 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 bounce. That prayer just stayed in this room. Didn't go very far. But let me tell you, when you get in the secret place and you're not worried about what anybody says or what anybody, you're alone with God, and you know He's doing business with you, and you know He's working with you, and you know there's intimacy there, and you know there's a ministry that He's going to use to help you change a world. To change the world. I think there's somebody in this group. I wouldn't have come if I didn't think so. I believe God had somebody in this group that's going to be a world changer. And He's working in you right now for that. What we say yesterday, listen to your cheering section. That's your professors. That's your administration. Listen to them. It's your parents. It's your pastor. Dump your garbage. Realize that endurance produces assurance. And keep your eye on the prize. The author and finisher of our faith. Now, we got down to the nitty-gritty today. And tomorrow I want to talk about your experiences and how God can use those in an incredible way. Experiences that you thought you just put aside, never use. I want to talk about them tomorrow.